The chandelier's crystals caught the light like tiny prisms scattering across the polished mahogany. I sat at the far end of the table, fingers loosely wrapped around the stem of my wineglass. Everyone was talking, the clatter of cutlery punctuating the laughter that felt a little too practiced. I listened, really listened. His mother leaned toward his sister, whispering something with a smirk that didn't reach her eyes. I caught the words anyway. Gold digger, half laughed, half muted. My lips twitched. I smiled, soft, polite, almost nothing. Not enough to give them anything. I let them fill in the blanks themselves. He glanced at me once, a flicker of worry in the corner of his eyes, then returned to the conversation. The more they tried to probe, the more I withdrew, not aggressively, just carefully, like a cat curling into a corner that didn't belong to them. I noticed who avoided my gaze entirely. His father, pretending to concentrate on his plate. His brother was trying too hard to laugh at a joke I hadn't even heard. I filed each expression away silently. Every twitch, every pause, every glance of calculation became part of a map I was already drawing. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. Silence, I realized, had weight. It carried a kind of quiet power, heavier than any argument. They assumed I was fragile, hungry, and predictable. Let them. For now, I was the shadow at the end of the table, watching, learning, measuring. By the time they figured out they were mistaken, it wouldn't matter. They would already be behind. Brunch on the next Sunday felt lighter somehow. Sun slanted through the lace curtains, dust motes drifting lazily in the air, while his family clustered around the table as if the room were theirs by right. I let them. I had learned quickly that trying to fight perception was exhausting. Easier, sometimes infinitely more satisfying, to lean into it. I asked casually, "So, are you considering expanding your properties downtown?" The words sounded soft, almost curious, but they landed exactly where I wanted them. I saw it, the tiny flickers of satisfaction, the approving nods, the little smiles that said, "Ah, she's interested in money," typical. I let them talk. I tilted my head, laughed at the right moments, and sipped my coffee slowly. I asked a few follow-up questions, enough to appear interested, but not so many that it seemed desperate. Their assumptions became my stage, and I was performing with precision. It wasn't just about being seen, it was about giving them a comfortable version of me, a version that fit neatly into the boxes they had already painted. They believed I was predictable, transparent, even a little shallow. Perfect. Let them think they had me figured out. Inside, though, I was entirely elsewhere. I noted the pauses in their sentences and the subtle glances they exchanged when they thought I wasn't paying attention. I catalogued opinions and insecurities, not for revenge yet, but for understanding. Social currency, I realized, could be mined quietly, without confrontation, without anyone realizing. I smiled and nodded. I let the conversation meander, sprinkling in polite compliments about his mother's pastries, his sister's table manners. Each word was measured, each laugh carefully timed. My discomfort, yes, it existed, was irrelevant. It was a tool, a lens through which I observed them as they presented the performance they expected. By the time the conversation ended, I had confirmed something vital. Perception was malleable. They assumed they controlled the narrative. I let them think they did. They didn't even suspect that I was already 2 moves ahead, playing a game that only I fully understood. Long before any of this, the dinners, the assumptions, the whispered judgments, there were nights when the only sound in my apartment was the hum of my computer and the occasional sigh escaping my lips. I didn't tell anyone about those nights. I didn't need to. They were mine. I remember one evening in particular. Rain tapped softly against the windows, a steady rhythm that somehow kept me focused. I had just turned down an offer from a small investor, a sum that would have seemed obscene to most. I didn't decline because I wanted to seem clever or stubborn. I declined because it wasn't right for the trajectory I had in mind. My company wasn't just numbers. It was a reflection of something I understood before I had a name for it: patience, vision, control. No one saw me pacing that tiny office at midnight, arguing with spreadsheets and projections as if they could talk back. No one heard the whispers of doubt I muttered under my breath. "Are you sure? Can you do this alone?" And then, invariably, the quiet answer: "Yes, you can." Those nights taught me something fundamental. Power isn't flashy. It isn't announced. It isn't even recognized until it's already established. You build it quietly, deliberately, and when the world finally notices, it's too late to question the foundation beneath it. By the time he met me, I had already shaped my life in ways that would have seemed impossible to anyone who judged me from the outside. I had assets, yes, but more importantly, I had certainty. Not arrogance, not showiness, just a quiet, unshakable understanding that what I had built was mine, and I would protect it, not through confrontation, not through threats, but through control. It's ironic, isn't it, that people assume the gold digger narrative because it's easy, easier than considering that I didn't need him, that I didn't need approval, that the world's perception of me mattered far less than the truth I had quietly established over years of solitude, focus, and work. I let them think I was chasing something they couldn't see, and in that assumption I found an early advantage, because while they were imagining my desire, I was already walking confidently through doors they didn't even know existed. It happened on a Thursday afternoon, the kind of day when sunlight leans through half-open blinds, drawing stripes across the floor. We were alone in his apartment, the hum of the city faint beneath our quiet. He didn't say much at first, just poured himself a glass of water and settled on the edge of the sofa. Then he asked carefully, almost cautiously, "Would you consider signing a prenup, just for clarity?" I didn't flinch. I didn't hesitate. My response was calm, measured, even warmer than it needed to be. "Of course," I said, and that was it. No pause, no questioning, just an agreement. He blinked, a subtle tremor crossing his otherwise composed face. I watched it, noting the tension in his shoulders, the way his hand lingered on the glass a little too long. He had expected resistance, maybe hesitation, perhaps even indignation. What he got instead was calm certainty, the kind that unsettles more than argument ever could. I let the silence stretch, letting him adjust to the realization that I wasn't playing the role he had imagined. I wasn't reactive. I wasn't desperate to prove anything. I was simply present and fully aware of the consequences. In that moment, the dynamic shifted. He wasn't angry, he was calculating, reassessing. Something in his perception of control had slipped, almost imperceptibly, and I let it, because power, I knew, often came in subtle, unspoken increments. It wasn't about the prenup itself, it was about the truth it revealed, that I was deliberate, composed, and unconcerned with his assumptions. That quiet control, that refusal to react impulsively, was far more revealing than any confrontation could have been. A week later, I found myself sitting across from his lawyer in a sunlit office lined with leather-bound, intimidating bookshelves. The air smelled faintly of wood and ink. I had my documents neatly organized, but I didn't rush. I never rush. The lawyer looked over the prenup, nodding politely, until he reached my financial disclosures. His pen paused mid-sentence. Then, for the briefest moment, I saw it. an almost imperceptible flicker in his expression. Surprise? Respect? Hesitation? It didn't matter. I did not comment, did not explain. I just kept my hands folded, calm. Power isn't about announcing what you have. It's about letting the other person discover it in their own time, in their own way, and watching how it shifts their posture, their tone, their subtle assumptions. That flicker on his face was a quiet revelation, and I let it speak for me. When I left, the conversation had ended, but the dynamic had shifted. The lawyer, who had previously treated my questions with mild impatience, now answered carefully, almost deferentially. I didn't ask for it. I didn't demand recognition. It was enough that they had begun recalibrating what they thought they knew. Back at his apartment, the family conversation